6 niños y 3 mamás. O sea, debe de haber una ética, yo no sé, eso no es...
2009, a Learon fell to cartel violence. Decade later, sicarios ambushed their women and children, but they underestimated the wrong family. The Learons weren't just victims, they refused to bow to fear. We have sometimes cartels are messing with the wrong people. November 4th, 2019, the lonely dirt roads of the Sonora Mountains, Mexico. Bullets tear through SUVs, shattering windows and ripping into metal. Women screamed, children cried, and then fire. A vehicle exploded, trapping an entire family inside. The attackers, ruthless sicarios. The bullets traced back to weapons made in the U.S. Now, 3 SUVs carrying women and children of the Learon and Langford families made their way between La Mora, Sonora, and Colonia Learon, Chihuahua. These roads had been familiar for generations, routes their Mormon community had used for decades. But on this day, they weren't just heading to another town, they were driving straight into an ambush. The first gunshots came without warning, and the blast of bullets shattered the morning silence. Windows exploded, metal twisted up, and bodies slumped. Christina Langford jumped out, arms raised, begging for mercy. They shot her point blank. Further down the road, Ronita Miller's trapped inside her SUV with her 4 children. There was nothing she could do, as gunmen set the vehicle on fire, burning them alive.
This is for the record. Nita and 4 of my grandchildren are burnt and shot up.
When the gunfire finally stopped, 9 were dead, 3 women and 6 children.
Carried one another through the mountains for miles. Lost, injured, and alone, the children searched for help after watching their relatives be massacred.
Going through my mind was to get help because every one of them were bleeding really bad, so I was trying to get in a rush to get there.
Meanwhile, Devin Langford, who saw his mother get shot, somehow found the strength to hide his 6 younger siblings in the bushes, covering them up with branches to keep them safe. He then sets off on a 6-hour journey to get help, and as night began to fall, Kenzie goes out searching for him. By the time rescuers finally found her, around 9:30 p.m., her feet were swollen, blistered, and completely bare, but she never once complained. Instead, she said,
"We have to go back. My brothers and sisters are dying."
Now, this wasn't just another cartel massacre. The Learons aren't your ordinary family here. They'd been standing up to the cartel for years. In 2009, Benjamin Learon was killed for refusing to pay extortion, and instead of backing down, his brother, Adrian Learon, became one of Mexico's most outspoken anti-cartel activists. Now, the cartel probably thought things would go the usual way. Not this time. Their brutality couldn't be swept under the rug. They're messing with the wrong people. We have Adrian and Alfredo Learon not about to stay quiet as they push both the U.S. and Mexican governments to take action, and their outrage didn't just stay local. It crossed borders to the extent that Donald Trump considered labeling Mexican cartels as terrorist groups, and the FBI jumped in with an investigation. Now, within weeks, Mexican authorities had several cartel members in custody linked to the attack. Investigators believe that the mastermind was Roberto N., known as the Mute, and the 32, a leader for the La Linea cartel. He was arrested along with 2 others. La Linea is a brutal faction of the Juarez cartel, made up mostly of former cops who've become hired killers. They deal in drugs, weapons, and pretty much fear, operating along the Chihuahua-U.S. border.
Hope that it comes. Now, if you're talking about the Learons over in Chihuahua, they feel like they're grossly incompetent, and they're not satisfied at all.
The hunt didn't stop there, though. Over the next few years, dozens more suspects were tracked down, and by 2023, nearly 30 cartel members had been arrested. Some were already sentenced to long prison terms, and the Learon family wouldn't let the world forget. Cartel underestimated them and paid the price in full. On February 7, 1985, in broad daylight, cartel enforcers crossed the line and abducted a DEA agent. Hours later, a Mexican pilot working with the DEA vanished too. Cartel thought killing a U.S. agent would send a message. Did, just not the one they expected. The Guadalajara cartel believed they were invincible. They ran Mexico's drug trade with impunity, bribing everybody and taking out anyone at will. But when they kidnapped the wrong man, everything changed. His name was Enrique Kiki Camarena, a DEA agent, spending years infiltrating their operations. His work had led to the destruction of Rancho Buffalo, $2.5 billion marijuana plantation, and the cartel wanted revenge. So that afternoon, they grabbed Kiki outside the U.S. consulate in Guadalajara. He's taken to a safe house, but was actually a torture chamber disguised as a home. For over 30 hours, they would brutalize him, breaking his ribs, jaw, skull. They electrocute him, inject him with amphetamines to wake him back up, and then force him to feel every moment of his suffering. Kiki was barely alive, probably, and his captors then wrapped his body in plastic and dumped him in a shallow grave. They thought it was over. The U.S. had other plans. Within days, the DEA launches Operation Leyenda, the largest homicide investigation in the agency's history. It wasn't just about justice, but pure revenge. Agents pressured Mexican officials, forcing them to hunt down those responsible. The U.S. cut financial aid, making one thing clear: hand over Kiki's killers, or the money stops. And one by one, cartel leaders fell. Rafael Caro Quintero, the ruthless enforcer, was captured in Costa Rica. Then Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, another kingpin, arrested and given 40 years. However, Miguel Gallardo, the cartel's mastermind, evaded capture for 4 years, until the DEA finally got him in 1989. But not all cartel members make it to trial. Whispers spread of U.S. operatives carrying out revenge killings, and you would see these men vanish before they could testify. Now, before Kiki's murder, the Guadalajara cartel was Mexico's most powerful empire. After Operation Leyenda, it splintered into smaller factions, including the now infamous Sinaloa cartel, which is also splintering. The cartel thought they could kill an American agent and walk away. Well, they were dead wrong. We take you to December 2nd, 1993. Pablo Escobar made his final mistake. He called his family. Colombian search block with help from U.S. Intel had traced that call almost instantly. Now, Escobar's downfall wouldn't be just bad luck, but a direct result of his own actions. This guy was ruthless, paranoid, and had a habit of making enemies out of people who once worked with him. And when those enemies got their shot at revenge, they didn't hold back. It really started in 1989, when Escobar declared war on the Cali cartel. He'd already wiped out a lot of enemies, so he figured he could just do the same to them. He bombs their businesses, assassinates their allies, and even goes after their family members. But the Cali cartel wasn't just another gang here. These guys are stoic, connected, more willing to play the long game. And when Escobar makes headlines with explosions and murders, Cali quietly builds alliances, including with people who wanted Escobar dead. Now, by 1992, Escobar's world was crumbling. He surrendered to authorities the year before. Under a deal, they let him stay in his own luxurious prison, La Catedral, and when the government actually tried to move him to a real prison, he escaped. From that moment on, he's a fugitive, hunted, with enemies closing in from every side. That's when Los Pepes, perseguidos por Pablo Escobar, or people persecuted by Pablo Escobar, emerged. These guys aren't random hitmen. They're people Escobar had personally wronged. Some were families of his victims. Others were former cartel members he'd betrayed. And the money was coming from the Cali cartel. By 1993, Los Pepes were tearing Escobar's empire apart. They bombed his safe houses, killed his lawyers, and even hunted down his family. The Medellin cartel collapsed, and Escobar, this guy was hiding in rundown apartments with just one bodyguard. His trusted hitman, Limon, the king of cocaine, who once controlled billions, was now barely staying ahead of his enemies. But what gave Los Pepes the advantage was that they had inside help. Some of their members were ex-Medellin cartel figures Escobar had betrayed, like family members of Fernando Galeano and Gerardo Moncada, two top cartel lieutenants who Escobar accused of stealing that he tortured and killed, and then seized their assets, and a former Medellin enforcer, Diego Murillo Bejarano, Don Verna. With all these forces against him now, it was only a matter of time. The Colombian search block with help from U.S. Intel traced that call to his family, and within minutes they're at a safe house of his in Medellin, surrounding him. He tries to escape off the rooftops, but doesn't get far. 3 bullets hit him, and it's over. So after his death, Cali takes over, but within a few years, they're taken down as well. Escobar's family fled to Argentina, living under false identities. Los Pepes disbanded. Their mission was over. They made sure this man had nowhere left to run. February 22nd, 2014 marked the beginning of the end for Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. He'd done it before. Escape, disappear, rebuild his empire, and he thought he could do it again. This time, Mexico's elite forces weren't playing games. As the head of the Sinaloa cartel, Guzman Lozettas ran one of the most powerful drug syndicates. With his partner, Ismael Zambada Garcia, they smuggled in drugs worldwide, controlling key Mexican states. Beyond the trafficking, they managed vast marijuana farms and laundered billions across the U.S.-Mexico Mexican border. So for years, El Chapo kinda seemed invincible. He would bribe officials, control entire regions, and had already broken out of a max security prison once before. 2001, arrested back in 1993 and sentenced to 20 years, he never intended to serve that. In 2001, he slips out of a federal prison in Jalisco, re-establishing himself as the top player in the Mexican drug trade, and even lands on the Forbes billionaire list. By February 22, 2014, Mexican authorities launch Operation Black Swan, top secret mission led by the Mexican elite Marines, the Fuerzas Especiales, assisted by U.S. forces, obviously, including Delta Force and U.S. Marshals, and their target, a beachfront condo in Mazatlan, where El Chapo was hiding. It's 4:40 a.m. They moved in. Every exit's blocked, every escape route sealed. There's no tunnel, no secret passage this time. Before he could even fire a shot, El Chapo's in handcuffs, humiliated and paraded in front of cameras. For the first time in over a decade, it looks like the Kingpin's reign had ended, and Operation Black Swan successfully captured El Chapo in Mazatlan. But you know what? El Chapo wasn't done yet. Now, for 17 months, he would sit inside of Mexico's most secure prison, Altiplano, just waiting, because beneath his cell, his men are working on something big. On the night of July 11th, 2015, guards go to check his cell. It's empty. He's escaped through a mile-long tunnel, equipped with ventilation, lights, and even a custom-built motorcycle, able to speed things up. And by the time authorities realized what actually happened, he's already deep inside a cartel territory, and the Sinaloa cartel celebrating, while the Mexican government's feeling humiliated. But we go to January 8th, 2016. El Chapo's luck finally ran out, as these annoyed Marines would track him to a house in Los Mochis, Sinaloa. This time they ain't taking any chances. Before sunrise, Mexican Marines launch a major raid, targeting a top Sinaloa cartel sicario. But Guzman was there too, and chaos breaks out. Flashbangs, gunfire, and a fierce shootout with his bodyguards. True to form, El Chapo makes a run for it, diving into a secret tunnel to escape through the sewers. His go-to move. This time, he got caught, and by the afternoon, the world's most powerful drug lord was right back in handcuffs, exhausted and defeated. A year later, they ship him off to the U.S. No more bribes. Say goodbye to tunnels, and we're done with second chances.
Desde el primer día de este gobierno, la instrucción de la presidenta ha sido clara. La seguridad de las y los mexicanos es una prioridad que demanda unidad, compromiso y acción inmediata. Como parte de esta colaboración, en la presente administración se han obtenido los siguientes resultados.
June 26, 2020, Omar Garcia Harfuch, Mexico City's top cop, was heading down to Paseo de la Reforma when his convoy was ambushed. Now, this was a full-blown assassination attempt, allegedly carried out by the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, top 3 violent criminal organizations in the country. Omar was born in 1982 in Cuernavaca, Morelos, coming from a family deeply rooted into Mexico's political and security circles. His mother, Maria Harfuch Hidalgo, was a telenovela actress, while his father, Javier Garcia Paniagua, and grandfather held powerful roles during Mexico's Dirty War. His grandfather helped lead the 1968 Tlatelolco massacre as a defense secretary, and his father ran the National Intel Agency before becoming Mexico City's police chief. So following in his family's footsteps, Garcia joined the Secretariat of Public Security in 2008 at just 26. He's working under high-ranking federal officers, some of whom were later exposed for their collusion with the Sinaloa cartel, while publicly waging Mexico's war on drugs. Despite the widespread corruption within its ranks, Garcia Harfuch quickly advanced, and in 2013, he becomes federal police coordinator in Guerrero, a state notorious for drug smuggling operations. Time, Iguala, a city in Guerrero, was a key hub for heroin shipments to the U.S., particularly Chicago. Now, his rapid rise in this would place him at the center of Mexico's ongoing battle against organized crime, which really shaped his career as a high-profile security official. Now, this attack was straight out of an action movie. A construction truck and a white SUV cut off his armored vehicle, and all hell breaks loose. Around 28 gunmen armed with 50 caliber sniper rifles, grenades, and high-powered automatic weapons just opened fire. Meanwhile, Omar wasn't going to go down easily, though. Already been shot 3 times. He takes rounds to the shoulder, collarbone, and knee, but survives, and his bodyguards are fighting back. 2 of them killed in that shootout, along with a bystander caught in the crossfire. So instead Instead of staying silent, Garcia wastes no time calling out the cartel responsible. From his hospital bed, he issues a statement.
Our nation has to continue standing up to cowardly organized crime. We'll continue working.
The message was clear. The attack wouldn't scare him into backing down. If anything, it strengthened his resolve. The CJ&G had already built a reputation for extreme violence, from taking down a military chopper to carrying out high-profile assassinations. This ambush, happening in the heart of Mexico City, just shows how bold they had become, making authorities respond swiftly. Raids are launched across the city, leading to multiple arrests. Among these detained are Jose Armando Briseño, aka Vaca, allegedly the mastermind behind the attack. Investigations would show a hit squad had been preparing for weeks, split into 4 teams, and given ski masks and weapons the night before. Just weeks after the attack, he returned to work, reinforcing his reputation as a relentless crime fighter. This guy's not just focused on surviving, he's gonna make sure that something like this never happens again.
Con las cifras preliminares que contamos, observamos una disminución de 16.3% en el promedio diario de víctimas de homicidio doloso entre septiembre y diciembre de 2024.
Following the attack, he pushed for stronger intelligence operations and even better coordination between security forces. He advocated for the creation of an Undersecretary of Intelligence and Police Investigation, as well as a national intelligence system to tackle organized crime more effectively, thereby sending a message that Mexico couldn't just react to cartel violence, can get ahead of it. The fallout from the attack didn't stop with just local arrests. In a major international move, Roman Alberto Muñoz Meza, the man accused of supplying the weapons for the ambush, was extradited to the U.S. He was also linked to the murders of law enforcement officers in Chihuahua. Now, that extradition was part of a larger effort in which Mexico hands over another 29 cartel figures to the U.S., signaling a deeper collaboration between the two nations in the fight against organized crime. Garcia Harfuch is a survivor, and that armored vehicle's a beast. He's a symbol of resilience, proving that despite the overwhelming power of these cartels, there are still people out there willing to stand up and fight. This is bigger than a man just dodging death. It's about a larger battle between law enforcement and syndicates who refuse to back down. February 24th, 2013 was the day the people of Michoacan said, enough is enough. I mean, what are you supposed to do when your own government doesn't protect you? You see, for them, the answer's simple. They grab their guns and fight back. Kinda sounds like Texas. For years, the Knights Templar cartel terrorized Michoacan, Mexico. They would extort businesses, kidnap for ransom, and slaughter entire families. The government either too weak or too corrupt to stop them. So Dr. Jose Manuel Mireles Valverde wasn't a soldier. This guy was a doctor, until the cartel would kidnap him, kill his family, and bleed his town dry. And then something inside him snapped. He realized that waiting for the police was pointless. If the government wouldn't fight for its people, well, then it looks like the people are gonna have to fight. And he wasn't alone. We had farmers, shopkeepers, teachers, just ordinary citizens joining him, arming themselves with rifles, chetes, and sheer determination. They would call themselves autodefensas, self-defense groups. Now, at first, the Knights Templar cartel laughed. They thought it was a bunch of angry villagers. But when the killing started, cartel started to get a little scared. It wasn't the cartel killing civilians. This time, we have civilians killing cartel members. Dr. Mireles, a tall, mustached man with a cowboy hat, became the face of this movement. He gets on TV rallying Mexicans to stand up and fight. The message was simple.
If the government won't protect us, we'll protect ourselves.
The autodefensas stormed cartel-controlled towns, driving out or executing sicarios. They would burn drug labs, seize weapons, reclaim communities. It spread like wildfire, touching town after town, with regular people rising up, arming themselves with AK-47s, shotguns, and even the cartel's own stolen weapons. The autodefensas were doing everything the police should have done, and when they grew too powerful, the same government that looked the other way now turned against them. In January 2014, Mireles was seriously injured in a plane crash while traveling to Sicurian. 2 weeks later, the military steps in, trying to contain this chaos between the self-defense militias and the cartel. But later, he claimed that the government had forced him to read a script, manipulating his words to make it seem like he was surrendering. On June 27, 2014, Mireles and 45 others would be arrested in Lázaro Cárdenas, Michoacán, on weapons charges. Government had warned that any armed civilians who didn't join the official police force would be treated as criminals. Now, that's that arrest came just a week after a TV interview where he accused high-ranking politicians of corruption. From prison, guess what? Morales continued his fight through letters, lawyers, and online videos. He declared,
"We are not criminals. We are citizens who took up arms because we had no other choice."
And by the time he was freed, the auto defenses had changed. Some had been absorbed into government forces, others had turned corrupt. But in towns like Tepalcatepec and La Aduana, self-defense groups still stood watch, refusing to surrender. Dr. Morales sadly died in 2020 from COVID-19, but his message lives on.
Sometimes, when cartels mess with the wrong people, the people fight back.
For once, cartel wasn't the biggest threat in town, the people were. June 29, 2023, Cartel sets an ambush in La Aduana, gunning down Hipólito Mora and his men, torching his bulletproof truck to erase every trace of him. But even in death, Mora sent the message. He was no ordinary target. He was the man who made the cartel bleed. They even had to kill every single one of his men because they knew leaving even one alive meant the fight wasn't over. Hipólito Mora wasn't supposed to be a warrior. This guy was a lime farmer. But in Michoacán, that didn't mean much when the Knights Templar cartel ran everything like a personal empire. They extorted their farmers, killed anyone who resisted, and acted like kings. And for a while, they were kind of untouchable. Then they made a mistake. They thought Mora was just another victim. Yeah, he wasn't. While others would pay their dues and keep their heads down, Mora refused. He wasn't some wannabe gangster playing tough. This guy was a man with nothing to lose. If the government wouldn't protect his town, he would. So he picked up a rifle. Mora didn't wait for salvation. He became it. He rallied his people, built a self-defense force, and went to war. And for the first time, the cartel felt the heat. Their roadblocks are torched, their enforcers gunned down, and the people they terrorized for years aren't so afraid anymore. Mora and his men didn't just defend their homes, they took the fight straight to the enemy. The government didn't know exactly what to do. You see, on one hand, Mora's kind of doing their job for them, but on the other, there's a guy leading an armed uprising against one of the most ruthless cartels in Mexico, which is something they couldn't control. The lines blurred kind of fast. Suddenly, Mora's not just fighting the cartel anymore, but fighting to hold his own movement together. And the cartel? Well, they weren't going to take that beating and walk away. They adapted, infiltrated his ranks, turned allies into enemies. The war became a game of shadows and betrayals. Government, as expected, would stand back and do nothing. But Mora never backed down. This guy was arrested, targeted, and constantly under threat. He knew what was coming. In June 2023, the cartel finally struck. They ambushed him in La Aduana, determined to end him for good. His bulletproof vehicle is set on fire. His men slaughtered. These guys were trying to erase him. No loose ends, no legends, but they failed and turned him into a martyr. This guy wasn't just another casualty in Mexico's cartel war. He's proof that not everybody bows down to these people. He stands up against one of the most violent criminal organizations in the country and fights them until the very end. Doing pretty well for a while too. Cartel may have silenced him, but you know what? They learned the hard way. You can't scare all the farmers so easily. Mora made these people bleed. We're at the night of August 15th, 2010, and Edelmiro Cavazos Leal, the mayor of Santiago, Nuevo León, has just returned from attending a public event in the town square when chaos unfolded. About 15 armed men dressed like members of a now-defunct police unit stormed his residence. They roll up in 7 vehicles with flashing police lights, making it seem like an official operation. Cavazos and his bodyguards stepped outside to see what was happening, but before they could react, both are grabbed and forced into the vehicles. The attackers released the bodyguard about 15 minutes later, leaving him alive to spread the message. 3 days later, on August 18th, Cavazos' body was discovered near a waterfall outside Monterrey, handcuffed, blindfolded, and lifeless. A mayor had been executed in cold blood, and Governor Rodrigo Medina de la Cruz wasn't about to let it slide. Now, Medina had taken office in December 2009, stepping into a war zone. The state was under siege by Lozettas, cartel known for its extreme violence, extortion, and kidnapping rings. Santiago, Monterrey, and Guadalupe are all hot zones where this cartel operated with impunity. Medina knew his government needed to take action, but the murder of Cavazos made it clear that more drastic steps were necessary. Now, Medina didn't back down. He urged President Calderón to send troops to Nuevo León and boosted state police with better training, gear, and coordination to fight the cartels. The crackdown wasn't just for show. Security forces launched aggressive operations, and in April 2011, the Mexican army eliminated Juan Carlos Cordoba Ocaña, also known as El Furcio, key Lozettas figure in Guadalupe. That operation alone led to the rescue of 8 kidnapped victims. But Lozettas weren't just going to disappear overnight. Cartel still held a grip on the region, resorting to increasingly gruesome tactics to assert dominance. One of the most horrifying incidents came in May 2012, Cadereyta Jimenez massacre, where 49 mutilated bodies are dumped as a brutal display of power. Investigations into Cavazos' murder led to the arrest of 6 individuals, 5 of them police officers. The shocking revelation confirms what many feared. Cartels had infiltrated law enforcement. The suspected man reportedly admitted to kidnapping and killing Cavazos on orders from Lozettas. Governor Medina's tenure was marked by a relentless battle against cartel forces, but despite the violence, his administration fought to regain control of Nuevo León, proving that not every politician would bow down to cartel rule. November 10, 2010, Lozettas pay a visit to 77-year-old Mexican rancher, legendary Allejo Garza Tamez, and they wanted to take his land, but he refuses to bow down to their crap and does something that they never saw coming. He fights back. Allejo Garza Tamez was a businessman, a rancher, and an expert shooter who had spent his life working and living on his own terms. Born back July 17, 1933, in Allende, Nuevo León, Allejo grew up surrounded by the wooded hills of northern Mexico. His father, Jose, owned a sawmill, and from a young age, Allejo and his brothers helped with the family business, harvesting and selling lumber. He had a reputation as a man of his word. If Don Allejo made a promise, it was as good as a signed contract. He also had a deep love for the land, hunting, and marksmanship, eventually founding a hunting, fishing, and shooting club in Allende. His skills with a rifle became legendary. In 2010, Allejo owned a ranch in Tamaulipas, a state plagued by cartel violence. On November 13th, a convoy of armed men arrived at his property with a simple message:
leave in 24 hours or die.
Classic cartel move, taking what they want through intimidation. Most people would have fled. Not Don Allejo. Calmly tells these sicarios he gets the message and then sends his workers home to keep them safe. Alone, he would turn his ranch into a battlefield, placing rifles at key spots at windows. When the cartel came back the next morning, they're met with bullets, not fear. Group of around 25 sicarios pull up to the ranch, firing warning shots and demanding he give up the property. Instead, the Don answers with a bullet. One by one, he picks off sicarios. Using his knowledge of the land and his sharpshooting skills, he managed to kill 4 of them and wounded 2. The fight lasts for 5 minutes. Don Allejo had made his point. He's not going to let these criminals take it without a fight. And when the Mexican Marines arrived, they find a house torn apart, walls full of bullet holes, shell casings everywhere. Outside lay 4 dead sicarios and 2 wounded. Inside, Don Allejo, also lifeless, still holding onto his rifle. Gone, but not defeated. His death sent shockwaves throughout Mexico. For a country long plagued by cartel violence, his story instantly became legendary. He's not just another victim here. He was the guy that stood his ground when no one else would. His act of defiance was a symbol of courage, a reminder that even against overwhelming odds, some people refuse to bow down to fear. Despite widespread media attention, no one was ever arrested for his murder. The cartels continued their reign of terror, but Don Allejo's story lives on. Songs are written in his honor, calling him the executioner of narcos and praising his final stand. His legacy wasn't just about one battle, but about defiance in the face of oppression. Prove that sometimes one man with a rifle and an unbreakable will can shake an empire built on fear. Now here we don't have a cop, a soldier, or even a politician, but a mother. And when the cartels took her daughter, she became something they never saw coming: a one-woman army. Miriam Rodriguez was a mother from San Fernando, Tamaulipas. Her story begins in 2012, when members of Lozettas kidnapped her 20-year-old daughter, Karen Alejandra Salinas Rodriguez. And like so many desperate families, Miriam scraped together whatever ransom money she had, hoping to save her daughter. But the cartel took that cash and never returned Karen. Most people in her situation might have been paralyzed by fear, knowing that the cartels thrive on silence, but not Miriam. She refused to be another grieving mother left without answers. Instead, she sets out on this relentless mission to track down every person involved in her daughter's disappearance. She became a detective, changing her appearances, using fake identities, going undercover, pretending to be a pollster, a health worker, and whatever else she needed to be to get close to cartel members and their families. She got names, addresses, and connections, slowly piecing together the network responsible for Karen's kidnapping. One by one, she would hunt them down. With every lead, she passed on information to the cops, pushing for arrests. Persistence led to the capture of nearly a dozen cartel members, but exposing these people kinda made her a target. Despite the risks, she never backed down. She even co-founded the Colectivo de Desaparecidos de San Fernando, a group dedicated to finding other missing people and holding cartels accountable. Her work helped grieving families seek justice in a country where fear kept most silent. In March 2017, approximately 29 inmates break out of a prison in Ciudad Victoria, and some were implicated in Karen's kidnapping. Miriam had previously expressed concerns about her safety due to those escapees, and tragically on May 10, 2017, Mother's Day in Mexico, Miriam was shot 12 times by gunmen outside her home and died on her way to the hospital. The cartel thought killing her would erase her impact, and they were wrong. The legacy lives on through families that she had empowered, the criminals she had helped to bring to justice, and the fear that she had put into these cartels. Miriam's courageous actions have left a lasting impact, inspiring others to stand against injustice and highlighting the profound personal costs of confronting criminal organizations. Miriam Rodriguez wasn't just a mother, she was a warrior.